Good evening and welcome to the Citizen Diplomacy Show with World Chicago. My name is Maria Krasinski. I'm the Vice President at World Chicago, and we are a nonprofit organization that supports citizen diplomacy and hosting exchange programs sponsored by the U.S. Department of State here in Chicago. We are located downtown at 72 East Randolph Street in Chicago. You can find out more about us at worldchicago.org. And today we're going to talk about homestay hosting. So World Chicago hosts about 800 to 1,000 international visitors each year on short-term exchange programs, really coming from all over the world. Last year we had guests from 140 different countries, and about 25% of our visitors stay with homestay hosts. And so what is a homestay host? That means instead of staying in a hotel, our guests, whether they're here for 3 or 5 days or 3 or 5 weeks, have the opportunity to live with a Chicago family and experience everyday life in Chicago, have kind of a cross-cultural immersion experience while they're here versus just staying in a hotel. And during the day, our visitors are taking part in professional development or educational workshops, so the evenings and the weekends are really the time that they get to explore Chicago with their homestay hosts. And I'm delighted today to be joined by one of our homestay hosts, Marnie Schwartz. So thank you for joining us. And so Marnie and her family have been hosting some of our youth exchanges for the past couple of years, and so we wanted to hear a little bit more about your experiences and we can share them with our viewers. If you do have any questions for us, you can call in at 312-738-1060. But I'll turn it up to Marnie. So if you want to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with World Chicago.
I'm Marnie Schwartz. I live in North Center with my husband and 2 teenage sons. And we have been interested in hosting a youth in the past and have been a little leery about or shy of hosting a long-term just given our personal schedules. So I happened to find out about World Chicago through social media last year, went onto the website and put in an application to be a host, and Maria contacted me. So it was that simple.
Exactly. We try and make it easy on our host families. They are definitely our greatest treasure, our greatest resource in the city. So Marnie, what programs have you hosted for with World Chicago?
We have hosted 3 youth from the Pan-African Youth Leadership Program. We had 2 15-year-olds from Mauritania, and we also had 1 15-year-old boy from Nigeria.
Right. And to give some more background, the Pan-Africa Youth Leadership Program is also an initiative of the State Department of President Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative. And each year, World Chicago hosts about 60 young high school student leaders from all across sub-Saharan Africa. To date, I think we've had students from 24 different countries across the continent and into the ocean, into Mauritius, which is now top on my travel list, recently voted number 8 island in the world. And so it's one of our favorite programs to work on. We're now in our 3rd year and just about to welcome a new delegation in about 2 weeks from now from Francophone countries in Africa. So Marnie, if you want to tell us maybe a highlight that you had with your students who stayed with you.
You know, we had a great experience both times, and there were lots of highlights. There were many experiences. One of the things that I would say I was surprised about was these youth come to America, and a lot of times the first time leaving their country, their city, they land in D.C., then they came here to Chicago, and they bring some of their things, as you can see on the screen. We have the Mauritanian flag. They brought some of their attire. It was a wonderful experience, but they also came dressed in Michael Jordan sweatshirts. They were very familiar with the Bulls. They were very interested in our culture and our movies. In fact, right there we were eating chocolate chip cookies and playing Uno with my sons. So they had a great time. We took my Nigerian son from in the spring to Michigan and shared the lake with him, and then he's in the middle there and presenting to us his program. And there he is with my 2 sons.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing those memories. Now, of course, with any cross-cultural exchange experience, you're going to have some surprises. For better or for worse, mostly for good, and it's good learning experience. Yeah. Can you share any surprises you had hosting?
Our first time hosting, I was concerned about things like dietary restriction and religious customs and safety. How are they going to get around the city? And I was going to be responsible for these 2 teenagers in our first visit. And I think one of the things I wasn't prepared for was the first time I greeted Spy and Ebnu. I reached in, touched them, shook their hand, and they both took a step back because I didn't recognize that they were not allowed to touch any women. And so we figured out how to work through that, and we started doing this. So there was a lot of good night,
jazz hands,
welcome, and even when they left, instead of traditionally we'd give a hug, there was a lot of waving. It was great. It was a good experience.
That's great. Have you kept in touch with your sons?
Definitely. Social media has made it so easy. So obviously through Facebook, we get updates. But also we get a lot of emails. In fact, Shalom from Nigeria contacted me just this past weekend because of the tragic events going on in the U.S. He was concerned about that. Last week I got a Happy Independence Day message for the 4th of July. So we do keep in touch. I've even had a phone call.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get phone calls and I want to be like, do your parents know that you're calling
I asked that question
international
too.
long distance? World Chicago has about 50 students coming to town this summer. Summer is a great time for students to travel because they're off of school. And so we're reaching out to a lot of new homestay hosts to host for the first time. So what advice might you have for someone hosting for the first time?
It's a lot easier than I expected. It doesn't require much special preparation. Keep an open mind and open heart. Doing things like going to the grocery store, including them on meal preparation. They have a hugely busy schedule during the day. So when they come home, they want to actually relax a little bit and kind of kick back and just talk a little bit and have some quiet time and experience what the neighborhood's like. So it was much easier than I expected.
Well, that's great to hear. That means we're doing our job. As Marnie said, we do keep the students pretty busy each day. World Chicago's role is to plan a schedule of educational and cultural programs for them to experience the city, and with our youth programs, really build up their leadership skills, their communication skills, their ability to really become young leaders and make an impact in their community when they go back home. And all of our students are tasked with doing sort of a follow-on project when they go back home, whether it's starting a club at their school or doing presentations. And so we work them pretty hard while they're here to make sure that they can go back with a toolkit of skills to use. Those evenings and weekends, like Marnie said, are really that time to just settle in, and it's cooking dinner together, making cookies, playing Uno. That's really what it's about. So now that you've hosted a couple of guests from around the world, what advice might you have for an international visitor coming to Chicago for the first time?
For the first time, I think it's so important to stay with a family if you can. You see different areas of the city that you would never see if you're in a hotel. Mm-hmm. And Chicago's really diverse. There's a lot of different communities. There's a lot of different things to experience. So make sure you get out there.
Definitely, and that's one thing we are conscious of when we put together our programs, is to make sure our visitors, both youth and adults, see beyond just downtown and see the diversity of Chicago and all 77 neighborhoods, if we can get to them, but which we often can't, which is why our homestays are great and a really important piece of our exchange program puzzle, because while one student might not make it to all 77 neighborhoods, odds are some of their peers have been to different areas. Mm-hmm. I guess, this is our citizen diplomacy show in World Chicago. Our slogan is citizen diplomacy, one handshake at a time. So what does citizen diplomacy mean to you?
Besides this, handshakes sometimes. It's learning, it's making connections personally, face to face, and keeping those connections even when you're afar. So I think as a family, we have learned that the world is just so broad. We've learned a lot about it, but yet it's quite intimate. For us now.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And if I might share one anecdote a bit. So one of Marnie's sons, Brody, was able to join us on a program last year, which we do make space for our host siblings, as we call them, to participate alongside our exchange students in the programming if there is space. And Brody came along with us for a circus workshop, and it was with our Francophone African students, and he spoke a little bit of French, but not a lot. But he jumped right in there and was pretty fearless and was juggling right along with them. So that was great to see. Okay, well, thank you so much, Marnie, for joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing your experience. And so again, if you might be interested in becoming a homestay host with World Chicago, you can visit our website at worldchicago.org/homestay-hosting, and you'll find a list of all of our upcoming exchange programs there. Again, our address is 72 East Randolph Street in Chicago, in downtown Chicago. And our phone number is 312-254-1800. So you can give us a call as well to learn more about the work that we do. And now I am delighted to be joined by another one of our homestay hosts. Karen Brown is with us. Hi, Karen. How are you today?
Hi, I am fantastic, thank you.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So World Chicago, in addition to hosting youth exchange programs, we really are hosting the majority of professional visitors. So these are young professionals who are emerging leaders starting to make an impact in their field, in their country, who are selected for these exchange programs based on their accomplishments thus far and their potential to make an impact moving forward. And so Karen has been a homestay host for several years now for many of our emerging leaders from around the world. So Karen, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with World Chicago.
Yes, I'm Karen Brown, and I'm the Global Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for a large global law firm. And I got involved with World Chicago, I think, back in 2010. I've been a member of Meetup. And I was having a social evening at Meetup and was, connecting with folks. And these are individuals from all over the world, particularly Eastern Europe. And in the midst of that conversation, talking about travel around the world, someone by happenstance asked me about, where have I gone and am I familiar with World Chicago? And I said, absolutely not. And so this individual explained to me what World Chicago is and shared with me a colleague who works at World Chicago and asked if I would be interested in getting involved. And I said, absolutely yes. And so that began my relationship with World Chicago.
And we've been delighted to have you ever since. So tell us a little bit about some of the programs you've hosted for and the guests that you've had.
Oh, I've had quite a number of guests. I particularly have been engaged with the Professionals Fellowship Program, where I've had individuals twice a year. I've hosted individuals twice a year from Russia, from Turkey, from Azerbaijan, from Georgia, and so many other countries in between. And it is a joy to experience the eclectic vibe and energy and knowledge and experience that they bring to the table.
Definitely. So the Professional Fellows Program that Karen referenced, that is one of our biggest programs that we work on, where we host fellows in Chicago for about a month, so they really have time to get to know the city and immerse themselves in the culture and in the workplace. Rather than a series of meetings like our youth programs do, they spend the whole month working with one company or an organization in an internship, hopefully kind of learning the best practices of that industry, contributing to a project, helping out in the office, and overall building connections and networks here in Chicago and to have skills to take back home. And like our youth participants, we also ask them to do a follow-on project, so there's a lot of action planning and work. We keep them pretty busy as well, so again, it's those evenings and weekends with the host families where they can really settle in and get to know our city. And I know you recently hosted Eva from Croatia, is that right? And so we have several fellows, about 40 more fellows coming to town this fall who will also be staying with homestays from Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, India, Pakistan, and countries across Central Asia and Eastern Europe. So we love that program because we get to know our fellows a little bit more rather than the groups that are kind of here just for a few days and move on. The fellows really get a chance to get to know Chicago and get to know World Chicago and our hosts. So can you share with all the guests that you've hosted a memorable experience that stands out to you?
Oh, they all stand out in so many different ways, but I have to say it's really hard to narrow it down. I mean, they have such different personalities and interests, but I have to say that collectively, when I think about all of them, the common bond that we all share is around food. And if I may, there are two particular guests I hosted. And one of them, the first one, was quite remarkable. She's from Turkey, and we decided that we were going to have a cook-off. So she's very competitive, I'm very competitive, and we invited all of the hosts and their guests who were visiting along with their families for our first cook-off. And so I'm born and raised, I'm a native of Jamaica, West Indies. And we decided that we were going to have a Jamaican theme, and she was going to have a Turkish theme, and we were going to have this combined cuisine and have a judging competition. And we had about 30 people in my home.
Oh my gosh.
And it was fantastic. It was remarkable.
I don't remember being invited to this, Karen.
We had lots of
to eat
photos
too.
to show from it. So that was rather remarkable because that was my first guest. And then the second one, again, is still around food. This one was very different. This guest was from Russia. And we decided that we were going to have a Russian brunch. And again, we had our hosts and we had their guests and their families. And we were going to have a Russian brunch. Well, it turned into a Russian brunch that started at 11:30 a.m. And we added a Latin twist to it. So it was a Russian Latin brunch that ended at 3 a.m. in my home. Had to pick the last guest. So it was fantastic. Yeah,
That
but it's
sounds
always
incredible.
centered around food. Yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
That's definitely a way to make connections with others.
Yeah.
Looks like we actually have a caller. Hello, do you have a comment or question? Hello? Oh, we may have lost our caller. Oh, that's bad. Well, next time, if you do have a question, you can or a comment, you can call us at 312-738-1060. We'd be happy to share about citizen diplomacy and homestay hosting. So, along with food and sharing, there's always a few surprises as well. Have you had anything that took you by surprise or took your fellow by surprise?
I'd have to say there are a number of things that have taken us all by surprise. But I have to say, for me, the biggest surprise from hosting all of these individuals is the common bond that we have found naturally that makes it very, very easy to connect. From the moment I walk into the office on many occasions, and you've been there on a few occasions, including the last one, we both look at each other as if we're looking at ourselves in a mirror. We're a reflection of ourselves in our haircut and our style and the things that we love and we enjoy, to the large families that we come from. So I'm from a family where I have 7 siblings, and oftentimes many of them are from large families as well. So that has been a common surprise on both sides. And I have to say, I credit it to WorldChicago being able to match our visiting guests to our hosts very, very well.
Well, thank you. We do take that to heart. We look at everyone's preferences, not just gender or pets, but also interests, and try and find that connection.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have a caller again. Hello, do you have a question or comment for us?
Yes, thank you for taking my phone call. I'm just curious, if you host a family from Jamaica or Russia, do you get a chance to go and stay with them in return?
Well, Karen, have you ever traveled to meet your visitors in their country?
I have not gone to stay with them, but I have met a number of my guests that I've hosted. In fact, the last one that I got to visit, who took very great care of me and introduced me to their homes and their families and food and culture, was Russia. I was in Russia a couple of years ago, and they were fantastic in hosting me.
Definitely. I think many of our hosts do travel abroad to visit their guests in their home countries, and often our guests are just delighted that we have traveled all that way to see them, and are happy to reciprocate that hosting experience that they had here in Chicago. So it's always nice when you can keep that bond going.
Yeah.
I guess that leads into the next question. Have you kept in touch with all of these guests you've had over the years?
Absolutely. Thank God to social media.
Once again.
Facebook and WhatsApp. I certainly keep in touch with them, and email. So
Of
birthdays, big holidays, celebrations, tragedies. I hear from them. I connect
You're
with
part
them.
of the family.
I am part of
Yeah.
the family, so we do stay in touch and check on each other. Marriages, some of them have gotten married since then. So I am very much in touch with what's going on with their lives and theirs and mine. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
We even make arrangements sometimes to meet around the world.
Oh, wow. That's
Yep.
great. Rendezvous.
Yep.
Yes, Facebook, social media has been a game changer with
Yep.
cultural exchange. I'm still in touch with my host brother from many, many years ago. I won't say how many. So again, we have lots of fellows coming to town this fall, and we're always looking for new hosts to join our hosting community. So what advice might you have for a new host hosting an adult visitor versus a teenager?
I would say expect the unexpected. And by that I mean you are going to be so surprised by how warm and conscientious and kind and thoughtful they are. How much they, have a thirst for knowledge and understanding of our culture, but who we are as persons, but also the unexpected in how much you get to learn as well about a very different country and very different cultures.
Okay, so keeping that open mind and flexibility.
Yes.
Sounds like
Yeah.
Well, looks like we have another caller again. Hello, do you have a comment or question?
Yes, I wondered if you could... Hi, I was wondering if you could tell me how the guests are selected for these programs.
Sure, that's an excellent question. So the visitors on our exchange programs are selected by the U.S. Embassy in their country. All of the visitors go through a pretty rigorous application process, again, all based on merit and kind of demonstrating their accomplishments thus far. They interview with the U.S. Embassy. WorldChicago works with in-country partners as well as agencies in Washington, D.C. In the selection of the participants. So it's a pretty prestigious program that they're traveling here on. It's not something you can pay X amount of dollars and participate in. You really are earning your way onto these programs, which I really think brings a high caliber of visitor from our teenagers up to our fellows to Chicago. And even with our very short-term programs where they're only in town for 3 or 5 days and staying in a hotel, those visitors are all nominated also based on their merits and accomplishments. So all of the 800 visitors WorldChicago is hosting each year are all here because of their accomplishments and their potential to make an impact in their communities once they go home. So Karen, another question. So, you've hosted visitors from all different parts of the world, bringing all different cultural experiences and backgrounds with them. What advice might you have for a future visitor coming to Chicago?
Be prepared to shop.
And I think they are.
My advice is to come with an empty suitcase. So I have a punch list that I send to all of them in advance because you and the team at WorldChicago are so fantastic in introducing us way in advance of them coming here. And so about a week before they arrive, I send a list of things to them, and it's very specific in terms of the SIM card and bring the camera, and flats, wear flats, depending on
City
the weather.
walking,
Be prepared to walk.
That's
The weather. I give them all these things about the weather, and I do tell them based on the experiences of the first 2 guests, don't come with a full suitcase, because what I find is that they all want to shop, and they ended up having to buy 2 more suitcases, having to carry home, and then they worry about the weight and the load and the cost of that. I've had to purchase scales so that they can weigh all of their goods before they leave. So I say, be prepared to learn and to be embraced by just about every single citizen that you're going to cross path with throughout our city, and be prepared to shop.
Excellent. Okay, last question. 30 seconds.
Yep.
What does citizen diplomacy mean to you?
When I first heard of the term citizen diplomacy, and I reflected it for myself, I think what an honor it is for me to be a representative of my city. What an honor that is bestowed upon me to represent my country. What an honor it is for me to represent the values of my own family. So I think of it as being in a spotlight where I have to, or I choose to, be this person that represents the best of who we are as a nation.
Could not have said that better myself. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you, Karen Brown and Marnie Schwartz as well for joining us today on our first Citizen Diplomacy show. So again, if you would like to join our host community with Marnie and Karen, you too can become a homestay host. Our hosts live all around the city and nearby suburbs. WorldChicago takes care of all the ground transportation to try and make it easy on our hosts. But you can find all of our hosting opportunities and upcoming visitors at worldchicago.org. Our office phone number is 312-254-8688. 1800 if you'd like to talk more, get more information. And our office is located right in downtown Chicago near Millennium Park at 72 East Randolph Street. If you'd like to email us with more questions about homestay hosting, you can email homestayhost@worldchicago.org. So thank you all again for joining us for our Citizen Diplomacy Show, and we hope to hear from you soon. So thank you, and thank you again, Karen.
Thank you, Maria.
Have a great night.